Hello friends, I'm in this form. My name is Lauren. It's been a while. I know it's been a while. Listen, if you've never been here before, hi ho, my name is Lauren. I like to talk about tarot, spirituality, toxic spirituality, astrology, artist ritual, all those things. I've been out for a while. It's important to take some time, right? But I'm back, and I'm back because all the shit has happened with, you know what I'm saying, eclipse season. It came and went. Our nodes have shifted. Cycles have closed. New ones are beginning. And so with this dark moon in Scorpio, I wanted to take a quick moment, we'll see how quick this goes, to do a little talking about death in relationship to Scorpio and Scorpio season, how we can kind of solidify and close out the shifts that have been happening, and of course get into the meat and potatoes of everything and do a quick reading. So here we go, here we are. Let's start by looking at death. Death is the card for Scorpio. If you've been here before, you already know that shit. A disclaimer, of course, as always, these are my hot takes. You might have different hot takes, and all relationships to tarot are pretty much, in my eyes, valid because we all have different experiences that we're bringing to the tarot. So today, I'm just sharing my experience and what I feel is most pertinent to Scorpio in relationship to death. So let's look at this card. I can't remember this deck, or what the name of this deck is. It's fun though. It's got the eye. I'm sure someone can give me a comment down below about what this is, but this is a great example of death as it relates to Scorpio. There are three, if not more, elements here that I want to talk about. One, the arm reaching out of the ground, grabbing the scythe, the sickle. This energy of grabbing, beginning again, death rising. We then have the bird, this beautiful, almost peacock looking ass bird, because of the feathers, but it could be a raven, it could be many things. Either way, that's a bird. Scorpio is related to, in later stages of its magical alchemic symbol, as the phoenix. So I will take that as a phoenix, the arm of death reaching out of the ground. And then, of course, we see this figure on, I like to think of it as the river Styx, death coming for us, right? Death coming for us and guiding us. So this is a good example of the Scorpio energy, the deep open waters, the vastness of the shadows, the vastness of the ocean, the vastness of Scorpio, this watery energy that is very much bringing us forward into the deepest parts of this time. It is the fixed sign of this season. So this is our guide for the most autumnal, like fall sort of feeling. It's not just a matter of like, oh, fall's here, it's Libra season. Like, fall's here, it's Scorpio season. And then it's like, fall's almost over, it's Sag season. So we kind of have those layers within this season, right? And then we get winter because it's Capricorn. Yes. So this is a good just visualization around what death kind of has in store for us as a card, but also a lot, to me, connection to Scorpio. So of course, this arm coming up and around, I think, is one of the most important things. We see this one leaf that's hanging on because we are in the deepest parts of fall, so it's not quite gone because we haven't quite started the transition to winter. But Scorpio reminds us that death is coming. Death is here. Death is rebirth, because not all things bloom all year. So think about that in relationship to whatever the lessons that you've learned as the nodes were in Scorpio and Taurus. What was kind of the themes the last 2.5 years that you've been feeling and going through? What has died and what is dying in this season? I think for a lot of us, Scorpio might be a lot of like spooky, but the truth is it's because we're having to drop the veil of bullshit and go, yeah, this doesn't serve, this needs to die. Scorpio is also the sensual to a certain extent because it is the complement of Taurus, a very sensual sign. Maybe you do not know that. Maybe you know it now. Maybe you felt it, but you weren't sure. Scorpio is a sensual energy that, if Taurus is the sensual energy of the physical, Scorpio is the sensual energy of the spiritual. So touching on your brain gasms, you know? The good shit when someone is really making you feel intellectually stimulated and allowing you to kind of open up into that. There's a darkness to Scorpio. Sure, there's a darkness to death too, but that is not without saying that it is a sign of regeneration. Sometimes, if you're a gecko, gotta let the fucking tail fall off so you can survive. You'll grow another one. You're fine. But these, maybe I'm getting a little abstract. I apologize. But this is just a way of looking at that. Again, the hand is reaching up and taking what is for it. We have this vastness of the ocean. We have the precision of the vision because ultimately it is for the ultimate good that we compost and rot away those things that don't serve. If we're thinking about Scorpio as the scorpion, we might miss those details that we find when we're thinking of the phoenix aspects of Scorpio. The rebirth, the regeneration, the restorative practice that is simply saying, this doesn't serve me, this isn't good for me, I'm fucking good on it, bro, I'm letting it go. So with this card, this interpretation of death, we see a lot of illustrations that help us see the energy that I like to really tap into when I'm thinking about Scorpio. So this is why I wanted to share this card. This is a great card around the idea of death is not just simply a releasing control of what we can't do anything about, we can't change. But death is also saying, like, part of our ability to change is saying, I relinquish control where I never had it. Never had it. You still have control over certain aspects of your life. There are certain things that you do have control over. But when we cognitively look into our brain and see what's working and what's not working, and we go, yeah, I don't control these things. I don't control how others see me. I don't control what others think. I can control what I do in response to the stimulus around me. I can control how much I let that indulge in my psyche, in myself, and I don't have to wallow. I don't have to rot. I can let certain aspects rot without letting myself rot. Hope that makes sense. So this is all I want to kind of leave you with in respect to death and Scorpio. Let us do a quick reading. In this season of Scorpio, we have seen a lot, I think. So let us kind of think about what needs to die. What can we allow to fall? The leaves of our life. Which ones need to go? Which ones need to go? The leaves that need to fall. Seeing this card as the thing that needs to fall brings me to this thought, which is, we do not need to constantly be waiting for things to change or just be the observer. Being the observer is important, but it is also important to decide that action is more important at moments than sitting and watching. Perhaps you have been feeling that around this season there's been a lot of reflection, and that is great. With this Scorpio dark moon, which depending on which side of the continent you're on is either Sunday or Monday of this week, the 12th or the 13th, Sitting, watching, and alchemizing in that way is important. You might have been doing that a lot for the eclipse season, and I think that's a good way to spend the eclipse season. But the thing we need to let go of is the inaction and start to put action into practice. So that might look like a lot of things. That might look like, okay, I've done the studying, I've done the learning, now I need to implement said learning. This might also look like, instead of waiting for things to grow, making sure that you're doing more action-based measures than just like, again, stepping on the sidelines, maybe stepping in. I feel like in this world, there are two types of people right now. You are either hyper-focused on what's going on in the world or you're ignoring it. The truth is, both extremes are not going to be service to most people. You have to enter in the middle ground. That's going to mean a little bit of action and a little bit of reflection, but not sitting on the sidelines per se. There are small things we can do on a daily level. Start to implement those things. Maybe it's a breathwork practice. Maybe it's a journaling practice. Maybe it's a yoga practice. These might be the things, the actions that allow us to stop just observing and start acting. It might not feel like action in the moment, but it actually could be more, considering that there is so much focus. Excuse me, ma'am. My cat, I apologize. There's so much happening in the world that we might feel inundated with information, or we might be avoiding certain things. Neither is fully healthy. It's a matter of balance, right? And so you have been in this area, in this card of waiting and watching. Maybe action must be taken. And again, that can be small action that just gets you off of the ignoring or the not fully like presentness and get more present. Be an actor in the space. What does that mean to you? I don't know. This is a general reading, so this is really just about the dark moon, right? So when we think about this dark moon, I want you to think about it as closing out all of that eclipse energy we have kind of been going through, right? Like that we are kind of like taking the last bits of that and putting it into understanding, into practice. So that I think that's why this card is coming up, because that is the card for me of like waiting and patiently watching over the work that you have been doing. That I think is that season has come and gone for some of us, and now it might be time to start moving more. And that could physically be moving more. That could just be going for walks 45 minutes a day, 2 to 3 times a day, because something needs to shift. There's been observation out the wazoo. Now what? Right? Okay. What sort of action can we be taking? What sort of action can we be taking? Rest the brain a little bit more and get in the body. Stop getting in your head. Get out of your head. Swords. So this is a very physical card. This is like, what are you working on? This is like, what is going on in your brain? I ask that about my cat every day, and she's losing her goddamn mind. Are your restorative practices actually restoring you? Kind of evaluate your mental health and how you rest. For example, resting does not really count if you're just sitting there and scrolling for 3 hours in bed. I'm sorry, I just need to say it. Someone out there is going to need to hear it. But doom scrolling in bed is not actual rest. Neither is getting in every argument possible with people who think differently from you. sometimes our rest needs to start in the patterns that we keep, the patterns in the mind that are not serving. So even if we are resting, we're not fully feeling restored, because ultimately we're kind of like doing the same thing. We're just kind of watching, waiting. And ultimately, it's not about that. It's about really, really sitting with ourselves, with our relations, with our relationships, with who are we to the world? Where do we sit in the world? Where do we act in the world? And where do we rest in a way that actually restores us? Because again, this card is saying the time for inaction is over, but the way to do that is to make sure you're actually nourishing yourself. That's I think what I'm getting out of it. And as always, if you get something else out of it, go with it, babes. You know you better than I do. So with that said, what's our medicine card for this dark moon? What's the medicine card for this dark moon to kind of help us alchemize all of this energy? The path forward is not as complicated as it might look. Point blank, period. There are going to be some things that are hard to figure out. There are a lot of things that we will not have figured out in our lifetime. And that's okay. Because with this death and rebirth cycle that is coming to us in Scorpio season, the veil is lifted. We had Samhain. That veil was thin, and we were able to connect and see things, connect and be with our lineage on some level. And with this time of all this waiting, all this brain racking, it's coming through as just so exhausted. Exhausted and feeling trapped when you're not. And that might be the thing that needs to be composted the most. That might be the thing that needs to die this season in order to be reborn. Is the feeling of overwhelm, the feeling of not being able to do anything, and the feeling of being trapped where we are incapable of making change for ourselves or anybody else. That is not to say that there aren't real limitations, because yeah, there are. There are very real limitations. But how impactful that is from your ability to enact change on a day-to-day level is probably not as intense as you are internalizing right now. That is not to dismiss your lived experience, but rather empower you to think, okay, I'm tired of sitting on the sidelines hoping for things to come to fruition. I'm tired of not actually getting the rest I need. Where am I wrapping myself up in a place that I can move from? Because this person is surrounded by swords, but there's nothing in front. They can walk through. No, it's an illusion. And that is one of the things that the world really tends to benefit from, is the illusion of, I can't do anything. I can't make any change. There are so many energies and people and just things that benefit from that level of thinking. So the question is, how are you going to get out of that observational space? How are you going to actually get the rest that is restorative, that helps you empower? It's going to start by acknowledging the patterns that no longer serve, because that's what needs to die in order for us to be reborn and feel energized, to feel this arm coming out of the ground and saying, I take down what is left. I decide. A lot of that comes back to the place of, where are our illusions getting the best of us? And again, this isn't for shame fact. It's more around like, we all do this. This is a human pattern. Awareness brings some freedom, but it won't liberate everything. it requires us to do some deep work around, okay, do we feel like we're not worthy? Do we feel like this is the best we can do? Is it a matter of like, I'm just so insignificant and the world needs so much? The smallest shifts create radical changes sometimes. That's not going to be the case for everyone and everything, but you can't start when you are at a constant stop. And that, I think, is where this dark moon is here to kind of help bridge some gaps. I think there's a lot happening in the world, and I don't think, I know. We all know there's fucking crazy shit happening in the world. And for the past 3 years, we have kind of been in a weird place of constantly ingesting media and constantly feeling like we need to fight for something. And so you might have this feeling of just like powerlessness, but that's not necessarily the case. You have been doing work and you've been waiting for the fruits to come, but you're also not getting the rest that you need because you feel trapped in this space. So with this dark moon, I hope that you can take some time to evaluate how real some of these like limitations within the brain are really affecting your physical world. The swords are very mental, like brain be doing stuff. And this is very much the work that we put into the world, whether that's the spiritual work, physical work, monetary work, whatever that means to you, whatever this kind of is filling the blank in for you, evaluate where your brain is at, because that's going to make a huge difference come our shift in this dark moon. Sit with your death card, babes. Sit with it and ask it questions. What can you teach me? What can you transform within my life, right? Over on Patreon, we're talking about healing this month. So there are some prompts there. If you want to open up to Art as Ritual, those are free to access without being a subscriber. So if that might be something that helps you, something that resonates with you, working on healing our relationship with our own brain can be a huge, a huge place to start, but also really helpful. So if that sounds like resonant with you, great. If not, no worries. I hope that this was helpful. I hope you got something out of this. And of course, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe. Do all the YouTube things if you feel it. If you don't, it was nice to see you, friend. As always, make sure to drink lots of water. Take care of yourself. Take care of your community, your friends. And I will see you in the next one, babes. Bye-bye.